So I'm a little late getting the video out this week. I had a video all edited, ready to go on Friday, but it just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again. It was a story about me and the kids going out flying, and not that I don't think that's a good story. I've just kind of done that a few times. I thought I'd go a little bit different direction and kind of pivot to a little bit more of a talking point for this video, because there was a situation that happened as soon as we were done filming that flight that basically leads into today, nearly a month after that I think is a little bit better conversation to have. So I wanted to talk about that instead.
Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Before I get too far into this video, I want to go ahead and put the disclaimer out there that at no point in time was the safety of anybody ever compromised on this flight. This is more of a story about situational awareness that I think is worth sharing and discussing.
So here's the basic synopsis of what happened. It was a Sunday afternoon, about mid-March, perfect day. Finally a nice day in Middle Tennessee. It was sunny, it was warm. It was a good afternoon to go flying, so me and Rockwell decided we were going to go, and jokingly I tried to convince my wife to let me take Joey, our youngest. My wife is absolutely terrified of flying. I give it all the time because she's the only person I know who owns an airplane and wants absolutely nothing to do with it. She's at least come enough to trust me to let me take the kids flying with me. So the next step was getting our 2-year-old in the airplane, and she actually agreed to it. So that was exciting for me to actually be able to, okay, all of my kids have been flying. Gotta get my wife in the airplane now. I keep telling her that would make a great video. Anyway, what wound up happening is we got in the airplane, loaded up, did the pre-flight, run-up looked great, everything was good, took off, everything performed nominal, no problems, did a perfect flight, you know, did some sightseeing around Nashville, went and saw some things, flew over downtown, flew over the Speedway, flew over the house, Rockwell School, and we just had a good time. Came back, landed, no harm, no foul. The following day, the airplane actually flew in the morning and reached its 100-hour limit, so had to go down for a 100-hour inspection on Monday afternoon. During the 100-hour, it was discovered that one of the cylinders was at less than 30 psi. Don't know what happened. I never really did get a full readout on what happened. It put me in a position where I'm panicking, thinking, oh my god, did I just put me and 2 of my kids in a really bad situation? Did I just try to fly an airplane that was completely unsafe? Fortunately, I had all this video that I had recorded of us flying around the day before that, and I went back and I went through every moment of video that I could to look at the TAC and see, was it accurate? Was it reporting nominal RPMs for us to even be flying? So on the 172 Mike model, the minimum RPM speed is 2200 RPM. My airplane normally operates about 2250 on takeoff and climb out. It really brought me to the first concept that I wanted to discuss, which is normalized deviation. Basically, this is where you do something kind of wrong, a little risky, outside of what is the standard operating procedure, but you do it so often that it just becomes normal and it doesn't even become perceived as a risk anymore. Like a common example of this is in my front yard there's a stop sign, and I see people all the time kind of roll up to it but never really stop and just keep going, make their turn, and you know, go on with their day. It's not right, but they do it so frequently that they've now accepted the risk that there's probably not much opportunity for something bad to happen there, so they just do it. So one of the unique things about my airplane, one of the situations that we've come across, is that normally on climb out we're seeing about 2250 RPM. It's not wrong because it's above the minimum RPM for takeoff without abort. There's nothing that says that you can't do it, it just seems a little bit low. It seems like it struggles on the power spectrum. And a lot of us have discussed this, me, instructors, you know, the owners of the flight school, and kind of the reasoning we've all put behind it is, oh, well, it has more of a cruise prop pitch on it. So, because when the airplane is at cruise, it wants to fly like a banshee. I mean, you cannot get enough throttle out of it, it feels like, to get it into normal operating RPMs. So it does make sense, but it's very easy for us as pilots to put ourselves in that position, to start making excuses for things that get their itis, or, you know, to fall into that normalized deviation where something that we probably should pay a little bit more attention to, we just don't, because it becomes such a standard thing, and it's like, oh, well, that's just a characteristic of this airplane. I'm not saying that's wrong. You know, me personally, it really made me go back and look at some of the things I've done with the airplane since I've owned it, And was that the right decision? So another unique thing about this situation is that this 100-hour inspection happened to be my TBO. I reached 2,000 hours on this engine, and that's when I had a failure. Generally, I've seen that there's two schools of thought when it comes to TBO. There's either you follow TBO or you're going to die, or TBO is just a number. As an aircraft owner, had my airplane not been in a flight school environment, I more than likely would have replaced the cylinder, and if all the compressions were still good on that engine, I would have kept going. I'm not going to say that one way or the other is right. I think that there is a middle ground to be living in. For me personally, you know, in my time searching for an airplane, TBO scared the hell out of me. I generally would not look at airplanes that had more than 1,200 hours on the engine because I just didn't want to be buying somebody else's maintenance. It felt kind of validating in a way to see that this happened right at TBO, and I'm not going to say what's right or wrong. Personally, as safety management background in me, I'm going to look at TBO as that number exists for a reason, and it's something that I personally adhere to. I'm not going to say that I'm right. I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I feel like that's really the definition of a risk. You're going to be willing to invest to prevent something from happening, not necessarily try to save money on the front end. What wound up happening is this was Monday, where we found out that the engine had failed, was not going to be able to pass a 100-hour inspection. So the following Tuesday, I was supposed to be flying the airplane down to Smyrna to Carpenter Avionics, where I was going to have my ADS-B install done. And obviously this wound up not happening because of the engine. However, talking with a few mechanics, we kind of came to the synopsis that the engine was probably still operating at about 85% power. I flew the airplane 2 days before that, more than likely in the same condition, and there was nothing ever really to give me any clues that something was going wrong. I waffled with the idea of, well, maybe I could still get the airplane down there, you know, it's going to be sitting anyway, let it sit in a maintenance shop, get its ADS-B install done. So I got in the airplane, I started it, and I did everything normal. I followed my checklist, I went through my whole pre-flight, I got to my run-up, I did my run-up, and I had the exact same thing, where I had less than 75 RPM drop on both the left and the right. There was really, at that point, there was no indication that something was wrong with the engine. What I did different from the checklist on this, and being armed with the knowledge that I had a bad cylinder, was I advanced the throttle to 100%, and I just stood on the brakes and kind of sat there for a minute to see what it would do. And it never came into the green arc. It stayed right about 2100 RPM. So obviously I boarded the flight, decided, well, there's no way I'm going to even chance this. Safety management expert, I'm always looking for the reason not to fly an airplane, and that's big enough reason for me. I'm not going to go. I can always move an appointment for, you know, an install. What came out of that though was I thought it was a bit unique that, you know, for me personally, I didn't have any indications. I didn't have anything in the panel. I didn't have anything in the run-up or anything else that would have led me to believe that that airplane was not safe to fly. Now, my airplane going through 100-hour inspections at a pretty regular interval every 2-3 months, I have a pretty regular stream of information about the health and the well-being of the engine and the airplane and kind of everything that's going on with the components, which is nice. But if I were a private owner and my airplane is only getting that information once a year, there's a lot more opportunity for things to degrade without me even knowing about it and potentially getting into a bad situation. If a student was going to go out and solo that airplane and they did a run-up and everything was nominal, I don't know that there would have been any indication to them not to go fly the airplane. More than likely, hopefully, would have gotten on their takeoff roll and seen that they did not get into the green arc on RPM and let that go. I could see myself, or I could see a student pilot very easily getting into a situation where that, you know, maybe it appears like it's going to advance, but it didn't quite get there, and we just go anyway. What really concerned me when I went back and I looked over this video is I kind of wanted to make sure that I'm not being the dummy. Am I the one who was I so determined to take my kid flying, and I had these new mounts from Flight Flicks that I wanted to do this so bad that I ignored something, you know, that get-there-itis kind of symptoms. And I mean, being honest and going back and reviewing what did transpire on that flight, I don't see any reason to doubt the decisions I made. I think I made the right decisions given the information I had at the time. But I think that another thing to consider is here's an engine that at that time had 1,998 hours on it. You know, there's things that need to be taken into consideration, especially that my last 100-hour happened in October, so that was almost 4 or 5 months ago. there's a lot more opportunity in that span versus where my usual 100 hours are once a month. There's just a lot more opportunity, and through the weather, you know, aircraft sits outside, things could go wrong. To put a little bit of extra emphasis and maybe do things a little bit differently and focus on some of that stuff. So it's definitely kind of changed things that I'm looking at when I'm pre-flighting and when I'm doing my run-up now. All that to say, a new engine is on the airplane now, and obviously that condition has been repaired, and now I see what it's supposed to do. You know, I'm getting 2350, 2400 RPM on climb out. It wants to fly at that cruise configuration. I guess the point that I really wanted to make today is don't let yourself get caught in that bubble. Don't let yourself get caught in that situation where I want to do this more than I'm willing to, you know, look at the risk factors. Trent Palmer really kind of was the inspiration for me to do this video. He put a video out about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, about water skiing and you know, the rights, wrongs, do's, don'ts. But if you're gonna do it, hey, here's some advice. And I thought that that was a great video because it focused on a topic that may be controversial, but if you peeled back the layers and didn't focus so much directly on the topic, I think there's a great conversation to be had there about personal minimums, normalized deviation specifically, and really assessing and managing risk as a pilot. I think that that's something that really does get glossed over in the general aviation world, is risk management, risk awareness, hazard analysis and classification. These things are really important to me and my day job, and I try to apply them as a pilot frequently. And I just don't know that enough people really have a good concept of what all those pieces are. Look for risk, assess risk, determine how to mitigate the risk or bring it to an acceptable level, and what that acceptable level of risk is to you as a pilot. I think that's something to really kind of focus on, and that was really the whole point of doing this video and taking the concept of a simple Sunday leisure flight that could have gone bad by ignoring some simple signals. I definitely have to say thank you to everybody who's been watching these videos and supporting this channel. It just continues to grow and grow, and I think that it's important to have these discussions. You know, flying is fun, it's great. I love making flying videos. It's really just a hobby of mine. This is fun to me. I like working with video. I love flying. But I think there's times like this where I can put all that stuff aside for a second and try to have a real conversation and basically put it out there to the world that, hey, these are some things I think we should be discussing a little bit more realistically, because there are things to discuss. There are topics to discuss outside of just flying the airplane and going places. And I don't want to make that the sole concept of this channel, but I'd like it to be a part of it. I'd like it to be something that collectively as a community we can do together. We can open dialogues about touchy subjects and be realistic about them, because they do affect us in general aviation. They affect us as pilots, and they affect the overall outcome of what we're all trying to do, and that's fly safely. Thanks for watching this one. The next one, we're actually going to take out the airplane with the new engine, do some test flying with it, see how it runs. I can tell you this much, it's been pretty awesome. It's weird having to fly around at 100% throttle because you got to work that thing pretty hard. And we got some pretty cool new views. If you've been following me on Instagram, there's a nice little snippet video that'll give you an idea of what's coming in my next few videos. So again, thanks for watching. I got to thank everybody who's down below on this ticker that's been supporting this channel. Thanks for my wife for letting me do this, and for actually letting me take our kid flying in a 85% power engine airplane. She doesn't ever watch these, so don't let her see that, or don't tell her about that. I may be in trouble if that happens. Thanks again. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.